sharing. Setting up meeting. Okay, we're live.
Great. If you want to add in the chat the link, I will post it. We usually get people that drop in a couple of minutes after the fact. Great. All right, so welcome everybody to this month's edition of the New Member Meetup. We do this once a month. This is something that gives new members an opportunity to ask some questions and share their experiences, and we have a guest presenter for each month. So this month we have John Shull, co-founder of e-NABLE, who has been involved since the very beginning in setting the stage for the online community and following it as it has developed in a lot of different ways. So maybe what we can do is we can go around and each introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about where we are and what our background is, and maybe a little bit about our goals, and we can end with John. And John can introduce himself and give a quick presentation about the new member resources and orientation materials. So I'll start. My name is Ben. I'm involved with e-NABLE. I've been involved with e-NABLE the last 3 years, more or less, working on the media coordination project, looking at a couple of different community events like this. There's 6 of them that we've piloted, and I will share a link in the chat to some of the other reoccurring monthly meetings. So I'll pass it to Erica.
Hi, my name's Erica, and I am very brand new here. So first time I've been to a meeting, and I have a fairly new 3D printer that I'm very excited about. And this is kind of a coming home for me because many years ago, I studied biomedical engineering with the idea of doing prosthetic design. And that was a dream deferred. And then I very surreptitiously found this community, and I would like to go back to my roots there. So
how cool is that?
Nice story.
So Erica, if you could pick somebody else on the call to introduce themselves.
Catherine.
Hello. So I'm Catherine Best, and I'm in the bioengineering department in Illinois, and we're making summer camps. And I also found e-NABLE kind of by accident online, and I was very excited because it speaks to our mission. I think the human-centered engineering projects are really exciting for all of us. So thank you. And I'm also very new, this is going to be challenging for my group, but we're all really excited and very motivated. Thank you. So I guess, do I pick somebody?
Catherine, can you tell us a little bit more about your mission as you describe it?
So the mission is just to get everybody and anybody from all ages interested in bioengineering and basically making the world a better place.
Fantastic.
And enjoying education.
And that's the mission of the summer camps that are being done by the biomedical engineering program. And who do the camps serve? Who are your young customers?
So we serve everybody. So we have a number of different camps from K through 2nd grade, and these are all age groups. Actually, we go all the way up through high school to the highest. We have 4 different camps that go all the way up, and we are servicing 2 different parts of the community. So one is called Dream, and this is for people who are underserved in the community, either from rural areas or who are Black, who would otherwise not be able to be exposed necessarily to different careers or engineering, or they might think they can't do it, but they can do it. And then we have another parallel line that's just open to everybody, just so that we don't forget anybody.
That's so great. And where are you located?
So we're in Champaign-Urbana.
Which is not that far from Jeremy Simon, who should introduce himself next, therefore.
Perfect.
Okay. I'm Jeremy Simon, and I'm based in a town called Algonquin, which is about 50 miles west of Chicago. And Yeah, I've been with the group from the beginning, along with John. I'm one of the co-founders, and I help more behind the scenes. John is kind of out in front, and I'm kind of supporting things from the rear in terms of infrastructure and help desk and web support and things along those lines. I do a lot of project management for special projects too. So just help out where I can, and it's been an amazing journey. I'm just kind of here to support things however I'm able to. I will pass it
And
over
that leaves-
to, I guess, John. You haven't introduced yourself, have you? John, have you?
No, not yet. Yeah.
John
so my
Moore.
name is- this is me.
Maybe we can pass it to John Dar. I think John Shull, if you end the introductions, you can go right into your
Sounds good.
presentation.
Everybody, this is Jandar Bradshaw. I'm connecting with you from Cleveland, Ohio at the Great Lakes Science Center. We're also the home of one of the nation's official NASA visitor centers. I mentor a group of FIRST robotic competition students, students from 4 teams from inner city schools here in the Cleveland area. And they would like to take on e-NABLE as part of their global community service project. We recently found out through our Rotary Club that sponsors us that they are sponsoring a medical mission to Ecuador. And there's a young 12-year-old girl who has lost an arm in an accident, and her other arm is badly damaged. And we were asked if we would be willing to support that medical mission by helping to develop a prosthetic hand that might be able to help her. They'd heard that FIRST students were interested in doing things like that, and they reached out to us. And when we did the research on our end, we found that e-NABLE was a product that we needed to be looking at. So here we are.
Fantastic. Jalen or Anjali, would you introduce yourselves? Whoever unmutes first gets to speak. Anjali.
Hey guys, I'm sorry for not having my camera on. I'm actually walking my dog right now. But to introduce myself, my name is Anjali. I'm 20 years old. I recently got my associates in chemical engineering, but I plan to transfer to a 4-year school where I can major in biomedical engineering. I'm actually specializing in biomaterials and tissue engineering, not the orthopedics part, but regardless, making prosthetics is a skill that I really want to learn. And I was actually introduced to this volunteer organization by my engineering professor at my college. And
Who is
like
that?
I said, Lisa Haley, she's from Brookdale Community College.
Okay.
She's awesome. So this is something I'm really interested in. And to be honest, I don't have that much experience with 3D printing. I don't own a 3D printer, but I am planning on building these prosthetics at my college. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and I plan to join my the prosthetic club at my 4-year school that I'm transferring to. So I would really like to make prosthetics for animals. That's something I see myself doing in the future.
That's great.
And Jalen?
Anjali, where is this 4-year school that you're going to that has a prosthetics club, and what do you know about it?
NJIT. So I know they volunteer making prosthetics for animals at a local animal shelter using their makerspace. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah.
That's New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. And Jalen.
Good afternoon. My name is Jalen. I'm currently a master's student at Drexel College of Medicine, and I'm currently the co-president of the e-NABLE chapter out there called Drexel Dragon Claws. And overall, I just wanted to know more as a new member of the team, and also the one that's going to lead us to fulfill our mission of trying to expand health equity and access in the greater Philadelphia area.
great. Welcome, Jalen. What did you say your chapter was called?
Drexel Dragonclaws.
Can somebody say that? I'm still not hearing it quite right.
Drexel Dragonclaws.
Drexel Dragonclaws. So that's Drexel, Pennsylvania, Drexel, Philadelphia, where I used to live. And by the way, I also used to live in Cleveland Heights, John Dar, when I was in high school, in the Dark Ages. Okay.
Well, before you start, John, I just got to say, as far as these new member meetups go, we got really a powerhouse group today. I'm so glad all these folks joined us, because there's so many wonderful connections to hear of in this.
Yeah, okay, so I'm John Shull. I'm co-founder of e-NABLE, and I'm going to talk a little bit about e-NABLE. I'm going to start with an overview of the organization, and then I'm going to sort of provide you with a roadmap for getting up to speed. But before I do that, I want to put this presentation in a little box. We're currently getting 30 to 40 new members a week, people joining the hub. That includes you. It's a complicated environment. And as Jeremy points out, it's complicated enough that while 30 to 40 new members join, and this is true of many organizations, a smaller number are as qualified or as together as you to show up at this meeting. We periodically have moments, this is one, when we realize, my God, we have this global organization. We have all of these wonderful people who get together, and we've created an environment where they can interact with people. But I'll say this to you as individuals, and I'm saying it to us collectively. You should recognize Erica and John and Catherine and Jalen and Angeli, that you all have got significant prior training, significant interest, and we can say with some confidence that right now you are 5 people who could really make progress this summer by interacting with each other and with the much larger community, which I'm going to give you a guide to. It's quite possible that that coaching and that invitation to just make of e-NABLE what you will is the most important part of this presentation. Ben and I, as we prepared this presentation, were thinking about all the pieces of the puzzle which we have and which I'm going to present to you. But as I said to Ben, we actually have lots of wonderful pieces of lots of wonderful puzzles. That's not the best way actually to assemble any particular picture. That's your job. I'm going to put the best spin on it and say that's your opportunity, is to look at the pieces of the puzzle and figure out which pieces you want to put together. But then I'd like you to present that picture back to us in a number of forums and venues that we have available and that you're all qualified to do. And that will continue the character of e-NABLE as a multi-perspective, multifaceted, multi-principled, multi-perspective organization, which is not even really an organization, but it does work for lots of different people in lots of different places in lots of different ways. I'm going to pause, right? But the point of that little preamble is to say this is where we're at, this is what we're trying to do, and I'm hoping that portions of this video will be embedded in the new members space so that it helps give every week's new members a starting point for making of e-NABLE what they will. That's where we're at today. We may get to a much more systematic process after you all have established your summer programs, but that's what we are. Okay, so now I'll pause for comments or questions, and then I'm going to share my screen. All right.
Maybe just one quick add-on.
Sure.
As a collective movement, e-NABLE has hundreds of chapters that are all independently financed. So it's actually lots of different organizations, and with different specialties in different places, adapting to different local needs. So I think that is something that new members sometimes don't realize in the very beginning, that it's not a single organization with a board of directors that works in a traditional way. This is something that began as a movement. People were really excited. They aligned around shared values of open source and free assistive technology and using 3D printing and other tools to support people in need. So it's really different in different places in some ways. Some people do lower limb prosthetics, some people do have done masks and different kind of assistive technology. Anyways, just wanted to put that into context.
And that's in fact what we're realizing we need to say. So here comes a hopefully 5-minute overview of the history of e-NABLE before we plunge into the present state of e-NABLE. Almost 10 years ago, e-NABLE began with a map and a slogan. And the slogan was, e-NABLE is a global volunteer assistive technology network built on an infrastructure of electronic communications, 3D printing, and goodwill. I wrote that when it was a complete fantasy. But there was a map. People were able to put the pins on the map. And with a little bit of lucky marketing, that communication went viral and pins started to appear on the map. And we said, holy cow, we didn't quite mean to do it, but we seem to have created something. Early on, we were a small group who had another slogan, which says, changing the world one hand at a time. And Maria, in the middle, is still with us. Peter Binkley is still involved. Jen Owen is responsible for the Enabling the Future website, but she's less involved. And Albert Chi, who's a prosthetic surgeon, is still doing what he does. But the point is, we grew. We grew in part because we had a Google Plus community, which was growing very rapidly, but astonishingly, the hub is growing with the same kind of speed right now. And we eventually developed a sense of what kind of an organization we are. Most organizations are spiders. There is a central nervous system, and there are lots of legs which are all directly controlled by that central nervous system. e-NABLE is a starfish. It's a meshwork of individuals and chapters and teams and utilities and videos and designs, which are all loosely interconnected. And the thing about a starfish is that while it's actually from a distance, it has a coherent shape, it's really a colony. And if you were to cut it in half, as you all know, starfish recreate and they grow. And in fact, that's one of the ways starfish reproduce. And in some ways, that's the way the e-NABLE community has reproduced. Just want to pause because I don't see any faces here. You're hearing me and you're seeing this?
Yep, we can hear it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So this is a hypothetical diagram of a generic non-hierarchical organization, but this actually is a real map of e-NABLE, which was done a few years ago, but it still sort of captures the jellyfish-like nature of our network. We have people on every continent. We have chapters. We have various functions, like you can't read this, but this is Enable the Future and the e-NABLE Fund and the e-NABLE newsletter, the hub. And I'm going to walk you through those existing utilities in a moment. But I guess for the new members, I'll point out that if you're a little confused about e-NABLE, it shouldn't come as a surprise. It's an organism, not an organization. But it's an organization, it's an organism or a movement, as we would say, which actually has some interesting features. which we are proud to call out and proud to invite you to join. And let me just go through it. An organization typically is motivated by the job of the goal of earning money, and the people who work in it are there to earn money or to serve the organization. Their highest value is the organization. e-NABLE's highest value is our mission, which has rarely been formally stated, but basically it involves bringing together a global network of volunteers to make the world a better place using emerging technologies and goodwill. The goal, therefore, is the greater good and not necessarily organizational gain, and that's why e-NABLE is not an empire, but a network. And there are a number of other hallmarks which differentiate us from conventional organizations. And at some point, I can put a link into a presentation in which I go deeper into that. Suffice it to say that e-NABLE today doesn't tell anyone what to do. And so you find present company, Ben and me and Jeremy and other past and present leaders engaged in the process that we call herding cats. And as you know, cats are impossible to herd. That's why the phrase is so popular among software developers, project managers, movement organizers, and others. But we do actually think that there is a way to get cats where you want them to go. And that is by creating a structure in which it is possible and ideally easy for the cats to find themselves where you want them to go. So here you see a cat herder in a structured organization, no, a structured ecosystem in which, if it were perfectly designed, if you wanted all the cats to get into the big room, you would have that door be wide open. You'd be able to make a commotion, and the cats would end up blundering into the right room. They'd meet each other and they'd do whatever the hell cats want to do. Well, that big room is the e-NABLE Hub. And to bring you to the e-NABLE Hub, I will now leave screen sharing mode. I will click a link, which is hub.enable.org. And you all have successfully found your way here. Now, I should say, there's a good chance you found yourself here by way of enable.org, aka Enabling the Future, which is sort of the outward-facing page for the community. And let me just ask that question. Is that how it went for all of you? Raise your hand if you Googled, you found Enabling the Future, and then you found the Hub. Is it true? Okay, Catherine, what was your route?
Actually, I was raising my hand, but for some reason you guys couldn't see it.
All right then. Okay, so there you go. So just be aware that Enabling the Future tells the e-NABLE story from a particular point of view. It's still the default starting position because it at least tries to tell a coherent story, but that in itself may be a mistake because the real action is on the Hub. Now, when you go to the Hub, you reach this complicated menu, and there's actually a whole lot here. I'm not going to go through that because, in fact, in the Hub, there is a launch pad which will help you go there. Angeli has her hand raised. I thought she had her hand raised because she too came by way of enable.org. But Angeli, if you have something to say, you're welcome to say it.
Oh no, I don't know why it didn't fade away. I raised my hand for that. Yeah.
Okay, you can lower your hand. I can lower your hand. And here we are again. Okay, I'm going back into full screen, but remember that means you need to shout out if you want to interrupt or ask questions, which I invite you to do. When I go to hub.enable.org, I go to the dashboard, which shows me new and exciting things that I've indicated I'm interested in. I believe that when you, as new members, go to the Enable Hub, you go to the Enable Forum, or perhaps more appropriately, you go to the new member space. So I'm calling your attention to the fact that the hub is made up of many, many spaces. Some for individual chapters, some for individual people, some dealing with particular topics, but one specifically for new members. And here we are. The new member space, like other spaces, has got a stream where you see communications to the space that bubble up to the top. You also see pinned posts, which stick to the top. So as you scroll down, you'll be going back in time. Strangely, the welcome message keeps on repeating. But what you can see are the new members week by week by week by week, which is the regular posting into the new member space. There is also a wiki, and because it's a wiki, anyone in the space is able to create new pages, but we haven't invited them to, we haven't encouraged people to do that particularly, so it's still pretty coherent. But I will point out that we are a do-ocracy, and that means that you, many of whom are professional educators and organizers, are welcome to create pages within the new member space, if they're appropriate to new members, or create their new spaces with their own pages and wikis and so on. It's also possible to do polls, and you can also find information about the space itself. But the best starting space for the space is the stream, because pinned to the top of that are some basics. I will go really briefly over the basics. I will point out that we have a code of conduct. And we rarely have to invoke it explicitly, but since this is an orientation, I will point out that we've done quite well with a few guiding principles. Demonstrate respect for others at all times. Embrace a spirit of sharing. And that actually has two really important aspects. One is the whole community is built on the concept of open source, which is all about sharing digital artifacts like 3D printable designs and curriculum materials under appropriate open source licenses. We can talk about that kind of thing in more detail. But the other spirit of sharing I want to point out is that we share, to the extent that you take the bait, we share work in progress, and we share some of the bumps in the road that we've encountered, because the hub itself is a great place to post into the forum and say, I'm having a problem, or I have a question. What can you tell me about that? Enable volunteers are really here to help, but they don't know what to help with unless you ask for the help. There's some things we haven't figured out, some problems we haven't figured out to solve, but I really want to encourage new members, the people here, the people watching the video, the people who are getting used, to share their puzzlement and their activities quite freely. Disagreements can arise. Here's a really valuable rule of thumb. If you disagree with something, question the argument. Not particularly helpful to say, I think you're saying this because you want to make a lot of money. That's questioning motives. Say, I think Enable is more effective when it explores a variety of business or organizational models. Then you're questioning the arguments. And the other thing is, offer solutions as well as diagnosis. We are a global community of problem solvers, and we've solved a lot of problems. Often identifying a problem, that's a diagnosis, is the first step, but it's often easier and really often more productive to offer a solution as well along with the diagnosis. And one of those solutions, so a diagnosis is, e-NABLE is really confusing. A solution is the launchpad. So this is the tip of the launchpad here, where we say, here are some shortcuts to becoming a maker, to registering on e-NABLE Web Central, to starting your own chapter and joining a chapter. But in fact, and it should be added here, the very first step should be to familiarize yourself with the Launchpad. And to familiarize yourself with the Launchpad, you can do no better than to watch with me a brief presentation by an e-NABLE intern who designed the Launchpad and presents it here. It'll be about 7 minutes.
My screen sharing here. I'll turn over to you guys. Thank you, Jeremy. I'll be presenting first. First of all, so thank you everyone for coming. And I'm going to be presenting on the dashboard that I have essentially made, though it's built off of the work of Isabella Kaplan, the intern before me. I'm also not starting with the actual dashboard, because first is this forum post in the new members space. And this is just a summary of how to become active in e-NABLE. This either will get pinned or added to the current pinned comment. I do not have the power to pin topics, unfortunately. Anyway, all of these links, and there's a link to the full thing, leads to the current pinned comment. I do not have the power to pin topics, unfortunately. Anyway, all of these links, and there's a link to the full thing, leads to the Launchpad, which is its own space. So people will not join this. This is a reference, which is why there's a link in the new member space. So to go through it, it begins with this information everyone needs. This is a lot of references about how e-NABLE works. The longest article actually is just how to use the hub with detailed instructions about how everything works and how to set up your profile, as well as links to more resources and things like how to get started as an e-NABLE volunteer, because that's the point of this entire space. Next is the e-NABLE governance structure, explaining that e-NABLE is not an organization, it's just a bunch of people who happen to 3D print prosthetic devices and stuff. So there are descriptions of how things get done, like this town hall is a major part of the leadership, as well as e-NABLEO, the Lumio voting platform for actually dispersing money, as well as some comments on funding. Next is the legal and funding itself, because a lot of chapters, especially school chapters, might have worries about this kind of thing, but as long as you follow the law, you're pretty safe, as well as details about getting money. Other pages have more details about how it's applicable to specific types of volunteers, but this is the general. There are 30 ways to get money from e-NABLE, and this diagram just illustrates that. Fundraising is a page on how to add money to the e-NABLE fund, because e-NABLE does good work, as we've seen in the previous pages, so you can either donate yourself or you can help raise money. So perhaps more importantly is the information for the volunteer types. First among them is the new makers. This is the second longest page. I tried to otherwise keep them to under a screen, but everything about how to actually become a maker fits on this one screen of the making a test device and assembling it. Because there's also advice for actually finding a recipient for your device, which is after actually making the prosthetic, the next most important thing, as well as some information about how important joining a chapter can be to many people, and also some links to more work, because once you become a maker, that is for many people just the first step to becoming active in Enable. So next is the chapter page. It's pretty easy to become a chapter, to register one. But the reason why you become a chapter from Enable's perspective, other than the community, is because you can get money or other support from Enable. That's the money itself, the badges, and also the community aspect. This is a point towards the community leaders meetup and the calendar. Next are recipients of devices. Even though they're the most important volunteers, they have the fewest instructions, because what they have to do is they can make a post in the forum or they can sign up for the Web Central, but the real work that they do is communicating with the makers and telling them what works, what doesn't work, what they need, and that kind of thing. But there's also a plug for the meetup for device users on the calendar. Next are the school groups. Even though they are just standard chapters, we have so many resources specifically for educational groups that they really need their own page, because there is, first of all, an entire space dedicated to Enable and Education. And then there's an entire website with a full curriculum beginning with elementary school going down to high school. I believe this was made by Lindsay Wells, as well as the education meetup. And next is it's called the coordinator here for space, but this is also the community leader. And the main ways to do that is become active in the meetings, for example, this town hall, of course, but it's also important to vote on Enable. Major proposals need at least 20 people to vote on them. So if you want things to get done, it's important to vote, and voting also gives you a say in what proposals are passed or not. But spreading the word is also important. For example, you might know someone in real life who needs a prosthetic or has expertise they can offer Enable and just don't know about us because we are primarily internet-based. And of course, badges are important, because if you hover over your profile, you can see how many badges somebody has. But if you don't know about the system, then you can't claim it. And finally is the designer page. This is short because I don't have the main prerequisite to actually design a new design. This is CAD experience, which Enable doesn't normally teach, but you can talk with other people. So there's a big post towards the hub. I know that there's the Bionic meetups, but that is not a regular group, as well as links to more resources, because it's also important for people to just print and assemble devices and test them, and also add other information to the device catalog, which is also in the maker page. So that is essentially my project. One of the things I'm especially proud of that might be hard to notice at first is the fact that the entire page fits on one computer screen, including the summary of the entire process, because you can go in any order, but most people tend to become a maker and then join the community in other ways.
All right, thank you, Kevin Darvik. Hello, people who I can now see. And I did want to say that I realized I was reminded from watching Kevin's presentation that you find your way to the Launchpad, because the Launchpad is its own space. And we should make that more obvious on the new members page, I believe. But there it is. And we welcome comments and feedback and contributions as well. The last bit of overview that I'd like to give, and I'm going to invite Ben to do it, is to just point us to the information about the recurring series of meetings that we have, which has become another important fixture of Enable. And I would really urge present company to find the Enable calendar and put a few of them on board. Many of you are involved in activities this very summer, and it's a great moment for you to participate and to learn what other people are doing this summer, and perhaps to tell us what you're doing this summer. So Ben, over to you.
Great, thanks, John. So if you go to the main forum, you'll see there's the menu on the left side. And if you go down, you can see that this month's e-NABLE meetings opens up a page where we have them all listed out. And we currently have 5 reoccurring meetings. There's e-NABLE Education. There's the Bionic Design meeting. Kevin mentioned it, but it is a reoccurring meeting now. It's been a really pretty popular one. You'll see that each meeting has a presenter. So Tanya Lurch shared her curriculum in this month's e-NABLE Education meeting. Esteban Rojas with Humanos 3D in Colombia shared his work with their Bionic designs. We have a chapter leaders meeting. Those are international chapters that come together. This month, the focus was on European chapters and the situation in Ukraine, but the themes do change depending on what the topics are. We have a focus follow-up meeting. You can see that Jacques Buchanan shared his design updates for the Kwawu, and then we also have the new member meetup. These meetings do shift around a little bit, but you'll notice that they currently are on Mondays and Fridays. They tend to be around midday, but again, sometimes we do shift them. Tanya Lurch joined us from California. So if you go to the wiki in the space menu, again, this is the main forum, you go to the wiki, there's a lot of resources as well as all the previous community events. So I can go back to April and I can see that there is a full list of events for April. Another way to
including recordings of these sessions. So if you
Right.
missed one, you can still catch up. There's a lot here.
Yeah, and actually, if you go to the calendar, our calendar is a really great resource. If I go back, let's say I go back to March, I can see the events. Here's the e-NABLE Education. Here's the chapter leader round table. If I click on that, it'll pop it open with some information about the guest speakers. This was with folks from Goa, India. And if you roll down to the comments, you'll see the embedded video as a comment. So that's another way that you can watch and catch up. So in a nutshell, that's a sense of our reoccurring meetings. There's these 5 reoccurring meetings once a month, but as a quick reminder, these are open to change. And for anybody who's interested in being a leader of a monthly meeting, let's say you have a specific interest or skill set. If you are a processist or have a background in some aspect of this process, feel free to be a leader, to raise your hand to organize a monthly meeting.
And Ben, this shows up in my email every month, thanks to you. Does it show up in everyone's email if they're members of the hub?
It depends on the spaces that they are following. But if you're interested in the newsletter, that is something I can add a link to our newsletter email, and we can add you to our newsletter, and there are monthly notifications of all the events.
Cool. Ben, I think we should consider having this monthly update go that all new members are added to the mailing list for that. And we make it really clear that they can turn it off if they can unsubscribe. But by default, I think it might be helpful for new members to be reminded that they have an opportunity to meet people in real time. I see Catherine nodding her head, so that's good enough for me. All right, this concludes our overview. There's still time for some questions or comments. And while we're going to finish at 2, the conversation can continue online or by appointment. So now I'm going to endure an awkward pause while I wait for Erica or Catherine or John or Jalen to give us, or Angeli, to let us know where they're at in wrapping their heads around e-NABLE, whether they have outstanding questions, whether they have suggestions for how to improve our onboarding or anything else.
And it'd be great to hear about any specifics that you guys have about your summer projects. If there's something that you need in a short timeline, I'm sure we can help to facilitate that.
Well, I'll just make comments on, so I think the presentation today was really clear, and the Launchpad and the websites, it is true, they're very packed with information, and it's obviously a thriving community. So it is a little bit daunting, but I think it's very clear how we can navigate the space. So I think I just need to get comfortable navigating the space, and then we're gonna tinker a little bit, we'll get busy. And I'll be in contact with everybody with problems that I have. And then I'll keep everybody updated. And I hope to contribute in the future, not only by making the prosthetics, but also by contributing to the education mission and supporting the group. So we'll see. But that's the mission.
That's great. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Yep, thank you.
I have a question which is more like very nuts and bolts. And I assume that there's some place, and I do have to do a little more investigating, where, you know, it can tell you, okay, if you want to start printing, these are printer settings we recommend. This is how we go. This is the, you know, the filament that we tend to use. This is what works best. This is just like all that kind of tuning and things like this. So if you want to print, this is how you get your printer up to spec, so to speak, because I assume that you just can't slap something together. This is something that has a person has to use, so it needs to be pretty, it's got to be really on point.
If you don't mind, John, I can jump in here and share my screen. There's a page in the forum, or I'm sorry, a page in the hub called Devices. And you'll see it at the top next to forum and chapters, you'll see devices. And there's a lot of really great resources in terms of the printing process. The other thing that you guys can do, and I think this is worth mentioning, all of our posts are hand filtered, which does take a significant amount of time, into these categories. So you'll see on the side, the forum topics. You can use this little icon up here that says filters, and you can put in under topic, let's say printing process. It'll pop up, and now you're filtering 8 years worth of posts into posts that are maybe more oriented towards the things that you're looking for. Other topics include education, and I think uniquely you can look for printing process and education and filter it even further. So you can get really pretty specific once you start having a sense of what you're looking for. But again, the device page at the top is going to give you a pretty good overview. You'll see the information resources on the side. That should help with some guidance.
Thank you. That's super useful. I know exactly where to go now.
Maybe as additional add to that, I'm going to share my screen one more second. If you look in the forum, it's organized by the most recent post, but also when somebody comments, it pushes that post back to the top. You'll see that at the very top, we now have the new member meetup featuring John. Here we are between 1 and 2. It has the attendance. When events come up in the future, feel free to let us know if you're attending or thinking about it or not able to attend. That can be really helpful, I think, for other people. If you're curious about the people that are attending, you can hover over their icon, and it'll tell you if they're a new member, it'll tell you the badges that they have. The badging system, I think even more so than the chapter system, is a really great resource for you guys. So think about, and you can see the badge page at the top, think about digging into the badges that we have and integrating that into your education programs this summer. Even if we don't have a badge, you can propose a badge and get a badge for proposing a new badge, and then have your new badge to give to your students. But the badges include a chapter. You know, becoming a chapter is one of our many badges, but there's also all these different devices, different ways of engaging with the community. And this can just be a really great way to not only sort of formalize your activities, but also to learn about who you're interacting with. So you can see these are all the badges that I've collected. this specific post, the new member meetup that's at the top of the list right now, it has the recording of us right now talking about what we're doing. I've tagged all of you. Feel free to add comments here and reconnect. So if there's somebody else in this call that you feel like you'd like to connect with, you can do it in the forum, through the chat, through the comments, or send a direct message to specific people.
I have one more thing I'd like to say before we're done. This is a small sample of the new members of this week. It's a really rich sample, as we pointed out before. I noticed it doesn't seem to have any of the people who said they were attending, but that's interesting too. What I wanted to say is that Jeremy and I have been doing this for a long time. And having gone over this overview, I'm really impressed with the platform that has come together. But I got to tell you that Jeremy and I are getting weary. There's no particular reason why we should continue to be charging up at the front of this hill. We always wanted to be a duocracy. We've had a number of people come and go, and they've made, like Kevin Darvik, for example, who have made lasting contributions. Jeremy and I are getting increasingly serious about having other people become leaders, organizers, designers of their piece of the e-NABLE community. I say this because it's acutely true. Jeremy and I are both involved in a number of things. Ben is involved in even more things, and any minute we could get pulled away by some of our other obligations. And this particular new member meetup includes, by my count, 3 highly qualified professionals who, don't only share our aspirations, but are already experienced organizers of learners and doers. And so Christine, Erica, and John, I just want to point out that we really mean it. And yet the only way it's going to happen is if you find a piece of the puzzle that you want to really take on. That piece of the puzzle could include potentially leadership of the whole organization, but that would be premature for your first week on the job. But we mean it. We really mean it. And you will be supporting the group if you be less polite than you're accustomed to being. That's what a duocracy is. Those who do it become the leaders. And the community, I can tell you this on good authority, you don't have to worry. The community will jerk back on the reins if you go galloping off in a direction that doesn't make sense. But often they'll say, good on you. How can we support you? And you'll find that you're creating a new branch of our amoeba, a new pseudopod of the amoebic organism that is e-NABLE, your new community. The end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Please
I've got
be in touch. That's
I've got the screen share on the new member space. You can see if you scroll down, twice a week we have an automatic post of all the new members, and there's folks from Colombia, Finland, Mali, Argentina, Germany. Every week there's people from all over the world that are joining the community. Feel free to explore in other languages. We do have chapters that are communicating in Portuguese and Spanish, French, all over the world. So if you have any of those skill sets or interests or connections, that's definitely something, the translation and sort of the resources there. And again, you can look in the hub for education. It seems like everybody here today is involved with education. We're sort of in a pivot point to get more educators involved. But if you look in our education space in the wiki, there's some resources, including a really thorough student chapter networking event that we did in November. I'm going to add the link to this, but you'll see on the side, it was a full day event with lots of folks that came from around the world All the videos and notes are here. If you want to get a sense of, a deep dive in the current state of education with e-NABLE, that's it.
Okay, everybody, it's really a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Now it's up to you. We're at your service. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.